when I started to do it myself and understand it as a result, that's when I really started falling in love with the cuisine. Magandang gabi! Ako po si Chris Urbano, bringing you food and fan from the Philippines as always. And Filipinos ask me a lot, why Urbano do you think that Filipino food is gonna go global? Why are you so obsessed with Filipino food? You're an Australian. You could just be in Australia cooking Australian food, but you're here in Manila cooking Filipino food and telling the world how great you think it is. So, bakit ganon? Sa palagi mo na, maganda talaga ng Pinoy food. And in a nutshell, this is just one of the most eclectic cuisines out there. I mean, the influences it has are from all around the world. And I truly believe that if we could just start doing Filipino food with really good, fresh ingredients and really cooking it with love and care that it deserves, then you've got a cuisine that's going to take the world by storm because it's just so fascinating, creative, it's innovative, and it's super sarap, right? It's really sarap. So today, I thought I would bring some Q&A with me about how I actually made my discovery of Filipino food. I'm not saying like I discovered it, that it never existed before, but I'm saying like as a foreigner coming here, discovering what it really means, which I don't think most foreigners do when they come to the Philippines. They try a few street food, they turn their nose up at a lot of it. Not many people really go beyond that sort of adobo and pancit layer to really discover what the essence of Filipino cooking is the way that I have. So I want to bring you a bit of a Q&A about how I discovered Filipino food, how I fell in love with Filipino food, and why I think that Filipino food, the global chef. I think the first dish that really caught my eye about Filipino food was actually laing from Bicol. And Bicolano food, it shares quite a lot of its flavor profile with Thai, right? Like Thai curries, coconut milk based, chili, spicy. But what was really interesting for me was the flavor of the taro leaves. I've never tried anything like it, and it's this really kind of bitter, earthy flavor that's infused with the curry that I've not found as much in any other Southeast Asian cooking. And I remember eating it just thinking like, wow, this is really interesting because you have this bitterness, earthiness from the taro leaves, but then you have these delightful shrimp, which when you use a larger shrimp, which I do in laing, is actually quite a sweeter style of meat. And the balance is just amazing. It just comes together. A taro leaf on its own would not be particularly delicious, but when it's cooked in that particular way, when it's combined with the prawns, the patis that would go in there, you get the kick of the chilies. It's actually suddenly a very exciting dish with a lot of flavor going on. So I think definitely laing was the first time I was like, there's a little bit more to Filipino than meets the eye. So sorry, mga kabanos, I have to think back to like, I don't want to say how old I am, but let's just say it's more than a decade I'm thinking back right now. But I still look young, I think. Don't answer that, don't leave a comment. So when I was first starting an experiment with Filipino cooking, I was living in Ortigas and I would go down to the EDSA Central Market and just see what caught my eye to cook. And I don't know if this is the very first thing, but it's one of my earliest memories of going there. And I was like, I feel like making some kind of soup. And then I saw some really nice halaan, look really fresh. And I don't cook with halaan a lot, so it's funny that'll be like one of the first recipes I did. But I got the halaan, big bag of it, and then I thought I'm gonna just ask them what to do with it. And they said you just need bawang luya, mais, saka dahon ng sili, and you can make yourself a clam chowder, like simple Filipino clam chowder. And at that time I wasn't cooking as much as I do now, and I'm like, okay, I can take this on. Very short ingredient list they gave, and I thought it's simple, it's healthy. So I took the clam home and I made this clam chowder, and I had a recipe book which had the recipe in it. So I was really following it closely, making sure I got all the quantification right. And then I was like, this is really, really delicious. Super simple, really, really simple lang. But just yung combination ng flavor, hindi saucy, super healthy, which a lot of people don't know about Filipino food. Those soups that are still made in the province are really healthy. And this dish actually stayed with me, kahit super simple lang siya, even until now. And this is a picture of me cooking it today, and obviously it's styled, it looks really beautiful, because it's going to be in my upcoming book, because it was one of the very first dishes I cooked, and I wanted to showcase a lot of Filipino food uses a lot of ingredients. Sometimes it's actually very, very just simple, earthy, and those simple pleasures of life are the best. So it's actually going to be in my upcoming book. And if you haven't already sent me an email about that, there is a book coming out, so you can send me an email. Oh wow, so what do I do everything in? Is a caldero. But I feel like that's a bit of a cheat. I mean, like anything can be a caldero, right? Like a modern saucepan. But I would say I am a huge huge fan of one-pot dishes. And the reason I'm a fan of one-pot dishes is I'm from Australia. We don't have helpers in Australia. So one-pot dish means one pot you have to wash up, not 10 pots you have to wash up. So it's all about the washing up. So I think here in the Philippines, the thing I do like to cook with, which is quite literally a single pot, is the palayok. And I made my pinakbet recently in a palayok, which we featured in my cookbook as well. Photography looks amazing. Like, I think pinakbet in a palayok just looks great and cooks perfectly and imparts this just delightful earthy flavor, and the rustic look of it is great. So probably that's one of my favorite traditional Filipino cooking implements to use, yeah. So I think like it wasn't just immediate overnight you fall in love with it, because I think it's quite a confronting cuisine. It'll really shock and challenge you actually when you first experience Filipino food in the full range and you're like, Filipino ba yun? Parang pasta yun. But then they made it jolly. I mean, is this actually the real Filipino food? And actually the answer is yes, jolly spaghetti, you have to say, is Filipino food. But I think at the start it's almost a confusing cuisine. I think that's one of the reasons more people don't know a lot about it. It's a bit hard to get beneath the surface, because then you're eating fried chicken and you're like, parang Americano to. Then you're eating chili con carne and you're like, parang Mexican ito. So all of it you're kind of always questioning, is this really Filipino? Is this really Filipino? But actually, yes, it is, and it has been adapted from all of those countries for what you see today. This kind of, I would say, Filipino food has a steep learning curve, and I think in a way it's an acquired taste, because if your palate is not used to these very strong contrasting flavors, so my comment about Latin earlier, for a lot of people, they love it after the second or third time, but the first time actually they can find it too bitter and the flavors too intense to enjoy it the first time around. I think sinigang is in that category as well, where if you're unfamiliar with the concept of sour soups, you've never really experienced that, you're going to be like, well, this is sour. Because in Australia, we pretty much only eat savory soups. It's actually quite rare in the sort of Western Europe, British kind of style of cooking to have a sour flavored soup. It's quite confronting, but after you try a second or third time, you're like, wow, this starts growing on you, and then it's almost like other cuisines start to pale a bit by comparison, because you get used to these pairing of very strong competing flavors in the same dish or on the same table at the same time, and Filipinos just bang them all together. That is shocking at first, but becomes increasingly more enjoyable. So I would say it was over the course of a year, and then as I cooked more myself and started doing things from scratch as opposed to buying like carinderia food where they've been using packet mixes and chemicals to add flavor, when I started to do it myself and understand it as a result, that's when I really started falling in love with the cuisine. So, I mean, for me, this is really about, there's 10 million Filipinos abroad, and I have a theory, okay? And it's a little bit like social, anthropological theory about why now is the time. And when I was growing up in Australia, you know, big cuisine in the 90s in Australia was like Vietnamese, Thai food, that was all taking over. And what you noticed was that there was like a lot of immigrants who came from those countries in the 70s and 80s and settled in Australia. And because they can't, you know, often they don't speak English, they can't get a regular job, like working in the government or an office, they're self-employed, they're providing basic services, they're laborers. And then the businesses they start is restaurants, because the one thing they can do that no Australian can do, and they don't really need to speak English to do it, is cook their own food. So they start to cook it first for their own community, but then the Australians would discover it and go, wow, Vietnamese food is amazing, and then pasok na yung Vietnamese food sa parang isang popular type ng pagkain dun sa amin. So that, I think, is really how foods spread, like immigration, a wave of immigration, and then that happens. Now, in the case of the Filipinos speak English already, so when they migrate, and a lot of Filipinos started leaving in the 80s, US, Canada, UK, Australia, it's in nursing, it's in construction, they're going out, but they're getting jobs right away. And in fact, most of the time, their migration wasn't like, I'm just moving there, it's I'm moving there for a job. So that first generation of Pinoys abroad, they did not have to start restaurants. They had good, well-paying jobs from day one in their new country. Now what's happening, and I think this is what's going on in the US right now, is it's actually yung second generation Pinoy who are now wondering, where did I come from? What about my cultural heritage? And they are the ones who have grown up in a sort of a half Filipino household or Filipino household that's become very American or Australian or British. And they're now looking back to their traditional cuisine and saying, wow, I want to indulge my passion for my culture, I want to make food like this, and I want to share this. And it's the second generation who's doing it, and they are just really hitting their 20s and 30s now. So that is my theory. Okay, I've done a lot of research this about the OFW movement and Filipino migration, and I really think this is the reason. It's just now that we're seeing it, but it's like been delayed a generation because that first generation, they didn't open restaurants. Grabe talaga na yun. I've heard like 3 more Filipino restaurants have opened up in Canberra, which was like where I was born in Australia. I mean, this is just unheard of, and it's really picking up. So I think talaga ito yung dahilan na second generation Pinoys abroad, and they're the ones who are doing it. If any of you guys watching are second generation Filipino abroad with a restaurant, come back to Manila. I'd love to cook with you guys, love to meet you, and obviously make the connection. So when I'm visiting your city, you can come and visit your restaurant as well. Let's do it. So if you agree with me, if you agree that global na yung Filipino food, or if you don't, you can leave a comment down at the bottom as well. But for me, it's like, it's not any one thing that's going to make it go global. But what I will say is Filipinos are the best ambassadors for their food. And at the moment, I think there's more people getting interested. But as a country, I think we got to be a lot more proud of our cooking. Cook it with love, stop taking shortcuts, stop putting factory ingredients in. Like, you go out to the province, you make a dish from scratch, the real Filipino traditional cooking, and it is absolutely amazing, and it's going to impress a lot of people. So if you agree with that, if you agree with me, well, you're probably already a follower of this channel, and if you're not, you probably should be. So do hit the subscribe button, click that little bell thing so you get the notifications. You know, yung parang bell dyan na they won't show you the new video unless you click it. So importante yun. Tapos meron din kami na Facebook, or you can always write to me at chris@maputingcooking.com if you've got an idea for the show, any comments for me that you don't want to leave below on the comments section. Try to keep them positive, guys. And if you're gonna write to me personally, like, please don't troll me and be like, I hate Urbano, to my personal email. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Leave a comment, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.